how do we take next steps? And let me just read some of them to you. The first one is the overarching theme. How do we change the course of the present madness? Second one, or another one. How do we get a national level voice to counter the negative media view of public education? How do we get the good news, including yours, out to the public? Another one. Much of what you say is wait a second. Much of what you say is very timely. I'm sorry. You know, some of you guys don't have really good writing.
No problem.
You would think you were doctors. Much of what you say is very timely and a good reflection of where we are as a nation. How do we use reality, as you expressed, in a programmatic way to really create a change movement? Another one. Too often, it's only educators who are taking our or your message to our elected leaders. Any thoughts on how to engage parents and others in this mission to bring truth to our lawmakers? And then the larger one, do you want me to stop now, or the larger one, is particularly for this group of leaders and advocates for public education who are compiled here as the Horace Mann League. What should the Horace Mann League be doing now?
Okay, here's when I discovered that I'm really growing older. And that was when someone got up at a meeting at Teachers College and said, I want to ask you a 3-part question. And I answered the first one, I couldn't remember the other 2. So, okay. So here is an 8-part question. Let me see. Well, the basic question is, what do we do? And what's currently happening now is that when educators say anything, and like with what's happening in Wisconsin, the media response is, oh, they're just worried about their pension. They're just worried about them. It's adult interest. What amuses me about this is you hear it from someone like Michelle Reed, who's out collecting $1 billion, who has no adult interest. Or Wendy Kopp, who just picked up $150 million, but she has no adult interest. Or these hedge fund managers who have no adult interest in their pursuit of privatization. So how do we get the message across that educators know more about education than hedge fund managers and various celebrities who are out on or pundits or people on the talk shows? I think that the answer has to be, first of all, that it's very hard to break through the media. As I told you, that despite the fact that we've had all this media attention on education, they have not permitted a dissenting point of view. We've only heard the school bashers. And I think that it's like a connect the dots moment for me. And I'm not a great believer in conspiracy theories, but in this case, I feel like there's so much money and so much power, and it's all on one side of the equation. And part of my search has been to try to find the foundations or the people with resources who will help parents and others organize. And there are many parents out there who will understand. They want their kids to be in the kind of schools that you know are good schools. They don't want their kids to be in a boot camp where they're sweating the small stuff. By the way, the book Sweating the Small Stuff by David Whitman is in praise of the new paternalism. And it's about how great it is to have particularly minority children treated as boot camp recruits. Not the way you'd want your own children raised, of course. The guy who wrote that book is Arnie Duncan's speechwriter. A little known fact. His name is David Whitman. Anyway, I think what you need to do, the only recourse, because as far as I know we're still a democratic society, is to build alliances. To begin to reach out to the civic leaders and to the business community in your community, and to build alliances. I mean, educators can't do it alone because they'll say, oh, you're just trying to fatten your own wallet. We're now in a race to the bottom. We're in a race to the bottom because people are saying, I don't have a pension, why should you? I don't have health care, why should teachers? And it's really, that's a race to the bottom. What modern, industrialized, successful society strips its people of all benefits while millionaires are exempt from having any increase in their taxes? And So I have pretty much given up hope that I will ever be asked to refute. I mean, I had a 30-minute interview with Katie Court, which never got on the air, and that was 7 years ago. I had a great interview with Jon Stewart, can't get on his show. I've just given up hope that I can break through the corporate media-owned big TV things. But what they can't control is the fact that there are millions of parents, there are millions of teachers, and you're the leadership. And so there has to be people organizing, reaching out to, as I said, the business community, the civic community. Teachers and administrators have to work together. This is not a case of us versus them, meaning administrators versus teachers. We're educators. We're all in the same boat. We're in a lot of trouble, and it's a dark, dark time for public education. So this is a time to build your relationships, your allies, get letter writing campaigns going to your members of Congress. I can't stress enough how important that is. Emails don't do it, letters do. They need to be really here. If they heard from every teacher and every parent who is discouraged with what's happening to the schools and discouraged by the attacks on education, they would not vote to renew the penalties and punishments that are now in the law. So that's my advice, and it's hard, but it reflects on what's happening in Wisconsin, and I think the governor there will probably just ram his program through. But nonetheless, teachers across America have seen what's happened in Madison and are very encouraged by it. And right now, from my own experience, I can tell you that people are thirsty for encouragement. I get tweets and emails saying, I was about to give up, but I read something you wrote, and thank you, and come to my community. We need somebody to give us support. People are so discouraged and so demoralized, and it's not a time to give up, it's a time to fight. Thank you.
So I hear you saying that we need to build alliances, work in the democratic processes, and since you can't do it alone, and even you are having trouble getting national audiences to get this message out, that we all need to take up the banner, and take up the banner with great vigor. So this may be a little difficult one, but there's a great question here as our last question. It says, Diane, the voices across the country are so siloed. Please name 3 key sources. This is a test of your memory, isn't it? Please, we don't need the ISBN number, just ID. Please name 3 key sources we should read or seek out to continue to connect the facts. And don't stop. We really need your passion working with ours. Thank you.
Well, I would say that most anything written by Richard Rothstein, who writes about class and race, and also did a good book about evaluation. On the Economic Policy Institute website is a statement written by many of the nation's leading testing experts called Problems with the Use of Test Scores for Evaluating Teachers, and that came out last August. I would read the Civil Rights Framework, and I guess what I suggest is that you look at read Valerie Strauss's answer sheet almost any day. She's the best journalist in the country for education. She has a blog called The Answer Sheet on the Washington Post website, Valerie Strauss. And she is the one journalist in America who gets it. She totally understands what's going on, and she prints material from Ken Goodman, Stephen Krashen, my stuff, Deborah Miner's stuff. She's become an outlet for people who are trying to defend and protect the quality of education. But the Civil Rights Framework, I think what you would Google would be Civil Rights Group Skewer Obama Plan. I think that's what her column was titled. And there's a link there to the Civil Rights Group's statement, and it's an absolutely excellent statement about what's needed and how the race to the top and the blueprint, the Obama blueprint, will hurt the kids who are neediest the most. So those are some. Barbara Veltri has written a very good book about Teach for America called Learning on Other People's Kids. Barbara Veltri is a professor at Northern Arizona University. Linda Darling Hammond has a terrific book, which you probably read, called The Flat World in Education. There are many, many sources. I would say go and sign up to something called the Broader Bolder Agenda. And I hope you've heard of that. Broader Bolder Agenda is hundreds and hundreds of educators who signed on to a statement about what the next version of the ESEA should look like. and how it should be broadened to look at children's health and well-being and families' health and well-being. Those would be some sources that come immediately to mind. If given another few minutes to think, I could probably think of a dozen more. I would direct you to look at the Vanderbilt study of merit pay. I would say look at the Stanford Credo study, which is the one that was funded by the Walton Foundation, and found that only 17% of the charters were better than regular public schools. And there have been many studies that have come out, they all conclude the same thing. There's also something that was done by the National Education Policy Center in Boulder, Colorado, and they did an analysis of the research base for the blueprint, the reauthorization. And I was one of the co-authors, but there are 6 different short papers that basically say they cherry-pick the data. There is no research behind any of these changes, and that's well worth reading. But there's just a wealth of literature, and this is one of the things I find so frustrating about the current corporate reform movement, which is that they claim to be data-driven, but they ignore evidence, and you can't be both. So thank you very much, and go out and fight.
Thank you, Diane. And we have one more thing to give to you. One of our past presidents, Spike Jorgensen, has something to give to you. And let me make a shameless plug for the Horace Mann League blog site. Jack is blogging. And I'm sure that, I know a number of these resources are linked onto our website and into Jack's blog. And I'm sure that Jack will get more of them up for us as well. Spike.
I truly can't believe that I'm here today after having been introduced to this lady years ago by Lawrence Kremen, the author of the little book about Horace Mann that we peddle and give out as a part of our membership. But if you look behind me on the left, you can see Horace Mann. And who could be a better spokesperson than Horace Mann himself, than the elegant lady that just presented to us? On behalf of the Horace Mann League and the Citizens for the Educational Advancement of Alaska's Children, we'd like to present to you what at least I consider to be Messerly's best work about Horace Mann. I know you've read it before. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say one more thing, which is to give encouragement to any of you who are thinking of writing. I've written a lot of books over the course of my career. This book was turned down by 15 publishers, and it became a bestseller on the New York Times bestseller list, and they all are crying in their beer now. So never give up. If you have an idea and you believe you're right and you've got good evidence, stick with it, go with it, stand by public education. Thank you.